Good morning, and happy Easter to you. It's a great morning so far. I hope you are already feeling that joy in this room. So much of that is due to the incredible ministry of so many volunteers that made today possible in the way that we are experiencing it. From people who designed and arranged flowers to the countless hours spent in rehearsal for our musicians and this great music that we have today, to a million things behind the scenes that you may never see. Imagine this: you came into a hallway with like 1,000 little butterflies, and somebody had to snip the string to hang all those butterflies. Her name was Linda. She did a great job. There are more people who put their hands on this service to make it possible for us today to share in the grace of this moment than there are people in the room right now worshiping together. That's a great testament to the value of the thing we are doing. Each one of them is in their own way. I should probably stop there and say thank you, by the way. Thank you. Thank you all for doing that. All of those people in their own way are storytellers. In that what we have done together, what they have done together, is provide a way for us to enter into this story. Might not have felt like that when they were cutting 1,000 pieces of string exactly 12 inches long, but they have allowed for us to share in this story of a new dawn, a new day, a new age. Now, Matthew is our primary storyteller for the day. Matthew, one of the four evangelists, the four writers of a gospel that made its way into the New Testament. Matthew tells his story from his perspective about the teachings of Jesus, about the way that Jesus fulfilled prophecy, the prophecies that Matthew would have understood as a part of his faith tradition, the making good, especially, of the promises that God has made to Israel. The way that Jesus is the fulfillment of those promises. Though those of you who are like into the Sunday school thing probably know that Matthew is the first book of the New Testament, he wasn't likely the first writer at all of a New Testament work. That credit probably goes to Paul. And even among those four evangelists, Mark is the one who most scholars would say gets credit for being the first to write a gospel, this collection of stories about the life and meaning of Jesus. So Matthew and Luke and John, all in their own way, are making little subtle corrections to Mark. There are a lot of them. I will not share all of them with you. We don't have that much time. You got an Easter brunch or something to get to, right? But I want to share something about the resurrection and the way that that appears in the first manuscripts we have of Mark and what Matthew is doing to correct for it. So bear with me for a little Bible study. In Mark's gospel, Mark presents things in a hurried kind of way. Rarely does he develop a lot of the drama. And so the women on the first day of a new age go to the empty tomb, and they do see somebody there. It's a young man. There are no guards or anything like that. And the young man is, dressed kind of in such a way that we might think he could be an angel. And that's all. They see the empty tomb, and they are terrified. And then the scene kind of comes to its conclusion. Contrast that, if you will, to Matthew. They get there. There's an angel there, and you know it's an angel because it looks like lightning, of course. And that angel, in all of that angel's sort of arrogance and cockiness, is propped up, lounging on the stone that has been rolled away like, hey, ladies, what's up? It's a ridiculous scene. It's an absolutely ridiculous scene, but Matthew thinks it's incredibly important. In Mark's gospel, they get there, and there's no earthquake or anything like that, but there is an earthquake in Matthew to signal its importance. There is an earth-shaking thing happening. The ground has moved under our feet. The world is a different place. It was a new day, a new dawn, the first day of a new age. The age of sin and death and evil had passed away, and the new age had begun. And Matthew's question is, will you join it? Will you be a part of it? Will you live in the new age or in the old age? He used everything in his power to tell us about that new day, to tell us about the invitation. Like, hey, listen, this is a place where death no longer has dominion. Look how he has been raised. Look, this is going to be a place where all people are gathered together, of every tribe and kingdom. This is a place where there would be justice for the orphan and the widow and the stranger and the persecuted and the oppressed and the marginalized. But then, as now, we had a hard time listening to him. Some of us prefer to live according to that old age, or at least a part of us prefers it. Now, the old age is characterized with things like power and an orientation towards scarcity rather than abundance, and this understanding that it is a zero-sum game that we are playing. If I'm going to win, somebody else has to lose. And we say, well, that's just the way things are. And Matthew says, yeah, not anymore. Even Paul, the great apostle to the Gentiles who himself encountered the risen Christ, struggled living according to this new age. So he would say things like, I keep doing the things that I don't want to do. And I don't know why, but I can't seem to resist the doing of those things I don't really want to do, because there are still parts of me living in the old age. Jesus never really said that we would all arrive there at the same time, or even that all of the parts of us would get there at the same time. And certainly not that it would all just come quickly, not until the very end anyway. What he said is, I have gone ahead of you to prepare a place for you, that where I am going, you might also be with me. I've gone ahead of you to this new age. I've started it. And you can come too. So come on. It's obvious to me that the people in Matthew's time struggled as much as we do, and like us, part of what they did to create some distance between them and the resurrection and its claim on our lives is to say, well, I'm not so sure that tomb was really empty, or to come up with some other reason to create some space. So Matthew tried to address that too. He would say things like, hey, listen, that tomb is empty and the stone has been rolled away. Not because Jesus needed the stone to be rolled away to get out. He was the creator of the universe after all. He walked on water. He did so many other things to demonstrate that that stone wasn't going to get in his way. But for Peter, for the women at the first day at that empty tomb, for the other disciples to be able to see in and then testify that the tomb was empty, the stone had to be rolled away. Likewise, there were some who would say even then and still now that if the tomb was empty, it was surely because some disciples had gone in and stolen the body to hide it so that they could come up with this hoax that Jesus had been raised from the dead. And so Matthew includes this detail that on Good Friday, on the day of Jesus' death, some people went to Pontius Pilate and said, you know those crazy people out there who've been following Jesus? They're probably going to steal the body of Jesus and then pretend like this big thing has happened. So why don't you give us soldiers to place at the tomb so that we can guard it? And Pilate said, yeah, you go do that. That sounds good. And that's why those guards were there. And Matthew wants to emphasize for us that nobody stole that body. All of this so that he could say, you can trust in this new reality. You can trust it and embrace it. It's going to change everything, but hold on to it. The resurrection is an earthquake. It will shift the ground under your feet. It will shake you to your core, and it will wake you up. You awake now? We've been doing that all day. It's so good, isn't it? Listen, if you normally go to one of those mega churches, they would have done that with subwoofers, and there would have been like a laser light show. Not here. That's skinny jeans and smoke machines over there, but at St. David's we've got a pipe organ. We're analog. Those churches are Spotify, we are vinyl. The New Testament says, "Wake up, O sleeper, and put on the light of this new day." Wake up, O sleeper. Now that we are awake, we can put some oomph behind our alleluias, and not the alleluias that we sing in here today, but the alleluias that we live out there when we go forth from this place, the ones that say, "I'm a part of this new age." And what Matthew is most focused on as he concludes his stories about Jesus is how the story will continue as the people go forth from that empty tomb. Mark kind of messes it up. I'm not picking on Mark too badly in this, but this is one serious thing that Matthew is trying to correct. Mark has the women go to the tomb and they see that it's empty and they are terrified. And then Mark says that they left and they told no one. It's a ridiculous detail, right? Like clearly they told someone, otherwise nobody would have come back to see that the tomb was empty, and there would be no church and no Easter proclamation and no Gospels. So Matthew and Luke and John all make sure that they fill in the detail, that the women are afraid and also are joyful and also are obedient. And they leave with their fear and their joy to tell the story. There are so many things to take from this, but here are a few that are important to me on this day. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to ponder the meaning of the resurrection, to wonder how it could be possible. It's okay to work out your salvation, as the New Testament says, with fear and trembling. And it's okay to tremble a little bit when you approach something sacred that you cannot understand. Have you ever had that experience of encountering something so sacred that you can't understand, but it just kind of puts awe into you such that you almost become a little bit afraid? Every single parent in the room is shaking their head like, yeah, I know that. I know that fear well. Everybody who's loved someone deeply knows exactly what that feels like. And if you've ever felt that, you know something about the resurrection. If you've ever found yourself feeling joy, having deep joy, even in the midst of your deep fear, you know something about the resurrection. In the New Testament, they say to rejoice always. They certainly don't mean to say that you have to always be happy. Sometimes life will take the happiness right out of us, but joy will remain. If you felt joy while going through something incredibly hard, you know something about the resurrection. In this congregation, there are so many who have encountered death and grief, and even in the midst of their sorrow can say things like, I am so glad that that person that I loved was a companion on my earthly pilgrimage. That's an expression of joy, even in the midst of pain. Those are people who know something about resurrection. If you've had the courage to be obedient to what love demands and what Christ calls for, even when you're scared out of your wits, you know something about the resurrection. If you've ever trusted that God was with you, even when it didn't feel like it, even when it felt like the whole world was passing away, you know something about the resurrection. And I could go on, but I won't. Here's what I want to say to you is that you don't have to know everything. None of us do, but you know something about the resurrection. You've experienced its power in your life. Because you know something about it, listen to Matthew's invitation to live with it, to live as a part of the new dawn, the new day, the new age that has begun already. Why not go forth from this place this Easter and share a little light? offer a little love in this world, especially to those who are so bound up in the world that is passing away. And tell that story. Tell it as well as you can. Tell it how you know it. That God's love is eternal. That neither sin nor death nor evil will ever stand in its way. That Christ is risen. And that truly Christ is with us always. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Happy Easter.